I died believing I had wasted the best years of my life. In my previous life, I loved Olivia Bennet for 3 years. I gave up promotions, worked overtime to support her dreams, and believed loyalty would eventually be enough. Instead, she left me at our company's annual gala for Jason, the man she called more exciting. I walked out of that hotel broken. Hours later, on a rain-soaked highway, a speeding truck crossed the median. I never made it home, but when I opened my eyes again, I wasn't dead. I was standing in the ballroom of Morgan Enterprises. The same crystal chandeliers, the same champagne glasses, the same annual company gala. And Olivia had just turned toward me with that familiar cold expression. I had been reborn. This time, I already knew every word she was about to say. I knew she would call me boring. I knew she would choose Jason. And I knew that only minutes after she walked away, my cold, untouchable CEO, Claire Morgan, would completely change my fate. 3 minutes before my life changed for the second time. I smiled, because this time, I wasn't here to beg someone to stay. I was here to rewrite my destiny. My name is Ethan Parker, and 3 minutes before my life changed, I was still convinced I was the most unlucky man in the room. The annual company gala was supposed to be a night where I finally proved myself. I wasn't the CEO. I wasn't a department manager. I wasn't someone people whispered about when I walked into a room. I was just Ethan, the guy who stayed late, fixed problems nobody wanted to touch, and quietly helped everyone else succeed. For the past 3 years, I had been dating Olivia Bennet. She used to tell me she loved that I was different. "You're the only person who makes me feel safe," she told me once. I believed her. Maybe that was my mistake, because that night, standing under the lights of the company gala, Olivia looked at me like she was seeing a stranger. I noticed it the moment she walked back from the other side of the room. She wasn't smiling anymore. "Ethan," she said. "Just my name. Nothing warm. Nothing familiar." I frowned. "What's wrong?" She glanced around. People were talking, laughing, holding glasses of champagne. But somehow I already knew something was coming. "Can we talk?" My stomach tightened. "Here," she sighed. "I don't want to pretend anymore." Those words hit harder than I expected. I stared at her. "Pretend." She crossed her arms. "Ethan, you're a good person. You really are." I almost laughed, because whenever someone started a sentence with "you're a good person," something terrible usually came after. But she looked away. "But you're not exciting." For a second, I thought I heard her wrong. "What?" She lowered her voice. "I'm tired of always feeling like I'm the one pushing life forward. You're comfortable, Ethan. Safe. Predictable." I looked at her, waiting for her to tell me this was some kind of joke. It wasn't. Then she said the sentence I would remember for a long time. "Jason makes me feel alive." Jason. I turned slightly. The guy standing near the bar. Tall, confident, expensive suit. The kind of person who walked into a room expecting everyone to notice. Olivia followed my eyes. "He understands my world." I swallowed, and "I don't." She hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than the answer. "You're amazing, Ethan. But he's more interesting." The conversation around us suddenly felt louder. I could hear people laughing nearby, someone taking pictures, someone congratulating another employee. But all I could focus on was her, my girlfriend, the person I thought would stand beside me. Instead, she stepped away. "I think we should end this." I stared at her. "Tonight." She nodded. "I don't want to waste more time." Waste. That word stayed with me. 3 years. Hundreds of conversations. Every difficult moment where I supported her. And now I was just something she didn't want to waste. Before I could respond, Jason walked over. He smiled like he had already won. "Everything okay?" Olivia immediately changed. Her expression softened. "Yeah." I was just explaining things. Explaining. Not breaking my heart. Explaining. I forced myself to smile. "Congratulations, Jason." He looked surprised. "For what?" "For being more interesting." His smile disappeared for half a second. Then he laughed awkwardly. I didn't wait for their reaction. I turned around and walked away. I needed air. I needed distance. I needed to remind myself that one person's opinion didn't define me. But before I reached the exit, a voice stopped me. "Ethan." I froze, because I knew that voice. Claire Morgan, my boss, the CEO of Morgan Enterprises, the woman everyone called the Ice Queen. Claire didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. When she entered a room, people noticed. She was 32, brilliant, disciplined, and impossible to read. Most employees were afraid of her. Honestly, sometimes I was too. I turned around. Claire was standing there. Her expression was calm. Too calm. You're leaving. I nodded. I think I've had enough excitement for one night. For the first time, I saw something different in her eyes. Not judgment, concern. That's not what happened. I looked confused. What? She stepped closer. Your girlfriend didn't leave because you weren't interesting. I stayed silent. Claire looked directly at me. She left because she didn't recognize your value. I didn't know what to say. This was Claire Morgan, the woman who once rejected a billion-dollar deal because she didn't like the contract terms. The woman who never showed emotion during negotiations. And now she was defending me. Claire, before I finished, she reached for my hand. The entire room became quiet. People noticed. Of course they did. The CEO touching an employee. That was something nobody expected. Her voice was soft. Ethan, look at me. I did. Then she said something that completely changed my life. I'm tired of watching you pretend you don't deserve more. My heartbeat increased. Claire, what are you doing? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer. And then, in front of everyone, Claire Morgan kissed me. Not a dramatic movie kiss. Not something meant to embarrass Olivia. It was simple, confident, certain. When she pulled away, she looked at me. Everyone was watching, but she only looked at me. Then she whispered, "Now you're mine." My mind went completely blank. The woman who never let anyone close. The woman who seemed impossible to reach had just chosen me. And the strangest part, deep down, I realized I wasn't shocked because Claire kissed me. I was shocked because a small part of me had always wondered what if she had been the one person who actually saw me. I don't remember walking out of the gala. That was the strangest part. I remembered Claire's hand holding mine. I remembered the entire room going silent. I remembered Olivia's shocked expression. But after that, everything felt unreal because Claire Morgan had kissed me. My boss, the CEO of the company. The woman who had spent the last 2 years being known as someone who could make a room full of executives nervous with just one sentence. And she had looked at me like I was the only person there. I sat in my car for almost 10 minutes without starting the engine. My phone kept vibrating. Messages, notifications, probably people asking questions. I ignored all of them. Then my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Claire Morgan. My heart immediately started beating faster. I answered. Hello. Her voice came through, calm as always. Are you home? I looked around. Not yet. A short pause. I almost laughed. Claire, you kissed me in front of half the company. Another pause. I'm aware. You're aware. Yes. You don't think that's something we should talk about? I called because I wanted to talk about it. I leaned back in my seat. Okay. Her voice became quieter. I don't regret it. I didn't expect that answer. You don't? No. I stared through the windshield. Claire, you realize what people are going to say tomorrow, right? Yes. They'll think I'm using you. They won't. They'll think I got promoted because of you. You won't. Her confidence annoyed me slightly. Not because she was wrong. Because she sounded so certain about me when I wasn't. Why me? The question came out before I could stop it. Silence. For a moment, I wondered if I had gone too far. Then Claire answered. Because you're the only person in this company who treats me like a person. I froze. What? You heard me. I didn't know how to respond. Everyone saw Claire Morgan as the powerful CEO. The woman who had everything. Money, status, success. Nobody thought about what it felt like to stand at the top alone. You don't understand. She continued. Everyone around me wants something. Her voice was different now. Less like a CEO. More like a woman finally admitting something she had hidden for years. They either want my approval, my money, my position, or my connections. I stayed quiet. But you, she paused. You brought me coffee during a 12-hour meeting because you noticed I hadn't eaten. I frowned. That was nothing. No. Her answer was immediate. It wasn't nothing. I remembered that day. Claire had been working nonstop for 2 days because of a major acquisition. Everyone was afraid to interrupt her. I wasn't. I had simply placed coffee and a sandwich on her desk. She looked up and said, "Why are you doing this?" I answered, "Because you look like you forgot you're human." At the time, I thought she was going to fire me. Instead, she just stared at me. Then she quietly said, "Thank you." It was the first time I had ever heard those words from her. "I remember everything about you, Ethan." My hand tightened around the steering wheel. "Claire, no, let me finish." Her voice became serious. "I know you always skip lunch when you're focused." I blinked. "I know you keep extra chargers in your desk because your coworkers always forget theirs." I stayed silent. "I know you stayed late for 3 weeks to fix the software issue nobody wanted to handle." My throat tightened because I had never told her about that. "I know you gave credit to your team even though management only noticed your work." The silence between us grew. Then she said, "And I know Olivia never deserved you." I looked down. "Don't say that. Because it sounds like you're saying this because she hurt me." No. Claire's answer was immediate. "I'm saying it because I noticed it long before tonight." That sentence hit me. Long before tonight. Yes. I frowned. "How long?" She didn't answer. That made me even more curious. "Claire." Finally. She sighed. 6 months. My eyes widened. 6 months. "I noticed you 6 months ago." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're telling me the CEO of Morgan Enterprises has been paying attention to me for 6 months?" "Yes." "Why didn't you say anything?" Another pause. This time, she sounded almost embarrassed. "Because I didn't know how." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was impossible to imagine. Claire Morgan, the woman who could negotiate with investors worth billions. The woman who could destroy competitors in meetings. She didn't know how to tell someone she liked them. "You're serious?" "Yes." "That's hard to believe." "I know." For the first time, I heard a little frustration in her voice. "I'm good at running companies, Ethan. I'm good at making decisions." She lowered her voice. "But I'm terrible at things that actually matter." My smile disappeared because I understood. Maybe Claire wasn't cold. Maybe she was just someone who had spent so long being strong that she forgot how to be vulnerable. "Why did you kiss me tonight?" I asked. I needed the truth. Not because I didn't want it, because I wanted to know if it was real. Claire didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "Because when I saw you standing there letting someone make you feel like you weren't enough." Her voice softened. "Couldn't watch it." I looked away. "And the now you're mine thing." A small silence. Then Claire said, "I meant it." My heartbeat changed. "Claire, I know what people will say." She continued, "They'll say you're lucky because I chose you." I didn't respond. "But they're wrong." Her voice became firm. "I'm lucky because you're the person I chose. For some reason." Those words hurt more than the breakup. Because Olivia made me feel replaceable. Claire made me feel chosen. The next morning, everything changed. The moment I walked into Morgan Enterprises, I knew. People stopped talking when I passed. Employees looked at me differently. Some smiled, some whispered, and then my assistant, Ryan Mitchell, walked over. He looked nervous. "Ethan." "Yeah." He glanced around. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." He lowered his voice. "Are you and Claire Morgan?" He hesitated. I waited. "Are you two actually together?" Before I could answer, the elevator doors opened. Everyone immediately became quiet. Claire stepped out. Black suit. Perfect expression. The same ice queen everyone knew. She looked around the office. Then her eyes found me and something changed. A small smile appeared only for me. She walked straight toward me. Everyone watched. Claire stopped in front of me. Then she said, "Ethan." "My office." The entire floor went silent. I followed her. But before the elevator doors closed, I heard someone whisper, "The CEO is serious about him." And for the first time since the breakup, I wondered if maybe losing Olivia wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the moment my real story began. The elevator ride to Claire's office was the longest 30 seconds of my life. Not because I was afraid of her. I had worked with Claire Morgan long enough to know she wasn't someone who scared me anymore. It was because I didn't know who she was now. The CEO, my boss, or the woman who had kissed me in front of everyone and told the world I was hers. The elevator doors opened. Claire walked out first. I followed her into her office. The moment the doors closed, the confident expression she wore disappeared. For the first time, I saw a hesitation on her face. That surprised me more than anything. I crossed my arms. So, Claire looked at me. So, yes, so. A small smile appeared on her lips. You're nervous. I laughed. Claire, you kissed me at a company event in front of hundreds of people. Then you called me yours. And now you're acting like I'm the nervous one. She looked away for a second. I suppose that was a little dramatic. A little. She actually smiled. Not the polite smile she gave investors. A real one. And somehow that made everything more confusing. You're different when nobody is watching, I said. Her expression changed. What do you mean? Everyone thinks you're impossible to approach. They're probably right. No, I shook my head. They're wrong. Claire looked at me. You really believe that? Yes. I thought about it. Because despite everything, I knew the answer. Because I've seen you. She became quiet. I've seen you stay at work until midnight because you didn't want your team to lose their jobs. Her eyes moved slightly. I've seen you reject investors who wanted to cut employees just to increase profits. I stepped closer. I've seen you pretend you don't care when you actually care more than anyone. For several seconds, Claire didn't say anything. Then she whispered, "You noticed too much." I smiled slightly. Someone has to. That answer made her look away, and I realized something. Claire Morgan was used to being watched, but she wasn't used to being understood. She walked toward her desk and picked up a file. I need to explain something. My expression became serious about last night. Yes. She placed the file down. I know the situation is complicated because I work for you. Yes. Because everyone thinks I'm only with you because of your position. Yes. I nodded. Then maybe we should slow down. The moment I said it, Claire looked at me. Not angry. Not offended. Just surprised. Slow down. Yes. She stared at me. Ethan, do you think I kissed you because I was trying to make a statement? I didn't answer. She walked closer. No. Her voice was quiet. I kissed you because I was afraid. That caught me off guard. Afraid. Yes. Claire Morgan. Afraid. Those two words didn't seem like they belonged together. Of what? She looked directly at me. That I would wait too long. I didn't speak. I spent months convincing myself that it wasn't appropriate. She took a breath. You were my employee. I was your boss. I told myself that meant I needed to ignore my feelings. I listened. But then I watched Olivia walk away from you. Her expression hardened slightly. And the worst part wasn't that she left. What was she made you believe she was right? That hit me because maybe she was. Maybe after hearing someone say you weren't enough for years, you started believing it. Claire stepped closer. Ethan, do you know what I saw when I watched you tonight? I shook my head. I saw a man who was hurt but still congratulated the person who hurt him. I looked down. I saw someone who was rejected and still worried about making everyone else uncomfortable. She paused. That's not boring. My throat tightened. That's rare. I didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever described me that way. Not even me. Then my phone buzzed. I looked down. A message from Olivia. I hesitated. Claire noticed her. I nodded. Do you want to answer? I don't know. Claire didn't tell me what to do. That surprised me. Instead, she said, whatever choice you make it because you want to, not because you're afraid of losing someone. I looked at her. You're not going to tell me to ignore her. No. Because I don't want someone choosing me because they have nowhere else to go. That answer stayed with me, because that was exactly what Olivia had done. She didn't choose me. She just stayed until something better appeared. I opened the message. Olivia, can we talk? I think we made a mistake. I stared at the screen. Claire quietly said, you don't have to answer right now. I looked up. You really mean that? Yes. Even after last night. Yes. Even after saying, I'm yours. A faint smile appeared. I meant that, too. I laughed softly. You're confusing. I know. That's the first time you've admitted something like that. Claire shrugged. I'm trying. And somehow that was the moment I realized something. The woman everyone called an ice queen wasn't emotionless. She was someone who had built walls so high that nobody bothered trying to climb them. Except somehow I had. Later that afternoon, trouble arrived. A meeting request appeared on my calendar. The subject line made my stomach drop. Emergency board discussion. Relationship conflict concern. I stared at the screen. Someone had already reported us. Before I could even enter the meeting room, I heard voices inside. She compromised professional boundaries. She cannot allow personal feelings to affect company decisions. The employees will lose trust. I opened the door. Everyone turned, including Claire, but she didn't look worried. She looked angry, not for herself, for me. One board member looked at me. "Ethan, perhaps you should leave." Before I could respond, Claire spoke. "No." The room became silent. She stood. "Ethan stays." The board member frowned. "Claire." "No." Her voice was calm, but everyone stopped. "I will not allow someone to treat one of my best employees like he did something wrong because I made a personal decision." I looked at her. She continued, "Ethan's work record speaks for itself." Another executive leaned forward. "But people will say." "I don't care what people say." Claire looked around the table. "I care about facts." Then she placed a document on the table. "This is Ethan Parker's performance report for the last 2 years." Everyone looked down. The room became quiet because the numbers were undeniable. Projects completed. Revenue increased. Problems solved. Everything I had done quietly was there. Claire looked at me, and for the first time I understood. She wasn't choosing me because she felt sorry for me. She was choosing me because she believed in me. But what I didn't know was the biggest challenge was not the board, not Olivia, not the rumors. The biggest challenge was convincing myself that someone like Claire Morgan could truly choose someone like me. I used to think the hardest part of being with Claire Morgan would be convincing other people. I was wrong. The hardest part was convincing myself. Because every time I walked into Morgan Enterprises and saw people looking at me differently, a small voice in my head reminded me, "You're only here because she chose you." And that bothered me. Not because I didn't care about Claire. I cared too much. That was the problem. Claire was everything I wasn't. She was confident, powerful, respected. When she spoke, people listened. When I spoke, I was usually the person fixing problems after everyone else had finished talking. I didn't want to be the man standing beside Claire Morgan because she saved him. I wanted to be the man who deserved to stand beside her. And apparently someone else knew exactly where my insecurity was. Olivia. She waited until the end of the week to approach me. I was leaving the office when I heard my name. "Ethan." I stopped. I already knew who it was. I turned around. Olivia stood near the entrance. She looked different. Not happier. Not more confident. Just uncertain. "Can we talk?" I almost smiled. A week ago, I would have done anything to hear those words. Now I just felt tired. "About what?" She looked uncomfortable. "About us." I shook my head. "There is no us anymore." Her expression changed. "Ethan, please." I stayed quiet. She stepped closer. "I made a mistake." Those words should have made me happy. They didn't. "Did you?" "Yes." "Or did Jason stop being exciting?" Her face tightened. "That's not fair." I looked at her. "Isn't it?" She opened her mouth then stopped because she knew. "You don't understand what happened." "No." I nodded. "You're right. I don't." My voice became calmer. "And honestly, I don't want to." Olivia looked hurt. "I still care about you." I almost laughed. "Olivia, you told me I wasn't interesting enough. I was wrong. You told me someone else made you feel alive." She looked away. I was confused. I shook my head. "No, you were honest. That was the difference." She wasn't confused when she hurt me. She was certain. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Is Claire making you say this?" I froze. "What?" "She's powerful. Ethan. She has influence. Maybe you don't realize it. But people like her know how to control situations." I stared at her. "So now you think Claire is manipulating me?" "I'm saying maybe you're caught up in something." I stepped closer. "No." My answer surprised even me. "No, no." I looked directly at her. For the first time in a long time, someone made me feel like I was enough. Olivia became silent. And it wasn't because she needed something from me. I paused. It was because she saw something in me that I didn't see myself. That was the moment I knew. I had changed. Not because Claire changed me, because she reminded me who I was. Olivia left without saying anything else. But the problem was that conversation wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The next morning, Claire called me into her office. She was standing near the window. That alone told me something was wrong. Claire only stood there when she was thinking. What happened? She looked at me. You talked to Olivia. I frowned. How do you know? She came to the building. My expression changed. What? She requested a meeting with you. Yes. I immediately felt uncomfortable. Claire. She raised her hand. Relax. I don't like this. Neither do I. That surprised me. You're jealous. A tiny smile appeared. Is that surprising? Actually, yes. Because Claire Morgan rarely admitted anything. Honestly, I smiled. I thought you didn't have emotions. She looked at me. I have emotions. She paused. I just don't usually allow people to see them. That was Claire. Always controlled. Always guarded. But with me, she was different. Then her expression became serious. There is another problem. What? She handed me a document. I read it. My face changed. A competitor company had started spreading rumors. Not just about Claire. About me. They claimed I had used a relationship with the CEO to gain a promotion. But there was more. They had leaked private photos from the gala. The kiss. The moment Claire held my hand. Everything. My stomach tightened. Who did this? We're investigating and the board. Some members want answers. I looked at her because of me. Claire immediately shook her head. No. But no. Ethan. Her voice became firm. This is not your fault. I looked down. Feels like it. Claire walked toward me. Look at me. I did. You think I chose you without knowing this could happen? I didn't answer. I knew. Her words surprised me. You knew. Yes. Then why? Claire's expression softened because I would rather face rumors with someone honest than sit alone at the top surrounded by people pretending to care. I had no response because that was the first time Claire admitted something like that. She was lonely. The strongest person I knew was lonely. Before I could say anything, her assistant knocked. Claire. Sorry to interrupt. She looked worried. The board meeting has been moved up. Claire turned. When? 30 minutes. The assistant hesitated and Ethan's name is on the agenda. My heart sank. Claire noticed. She walked back to me. Ethan. Yeah. Whatever happens in that room. She looked directly into my eyes. Do not apologize for being chosen. Those words stayed with me. 30 minutes later, I sat across from the board. The same people who had praised my work were now looking at me differently. One executive spoke. Ethan, nobody is questioning your talent. I almost smiled because that sentence always meant someone was about to question exactly that. But your relationship with Claire has created a serious concern. I looked at Claire. She was silent. Not because she didn't care, because she was letting me speak. That mattered. The executive continued. Do you believe your position in this company would be the same without her? Everyone waited. A week ago, I might have hesitated. A week ago, I might have looked down. But I wasn't that person anymore. I sat straight and answered. Yes. The room became quiet. The executive raised an eyebrow. Yes, yes. I continued because Claire didn't create my abilities. I looked around the table. She only gave me a reason to stop hiding them. For the first time, I saw a surprise on their faces. Even Claire looked at me differently, not as someone she needed to protect, but as someone standing beside her. Then the door opened. Everyone turned. Olivia walked in and the expression on her face told me something was wrong. Very wrong. She was holding a folder and she looked directly at Claire. I need to tell you the truth. The room went silent. Claire narrowed her eyes. About what? Olivia looked at me then back at Claire. About who started these rumors. My heartbeat stopped because I knew whatever she was about to say would change everything. The room became completely silent. Not the uncomfortable silence from a normal meeting. A different kind. The kind where everyone knew something important was about to happen. Olivia stood near the door holding the folder tightly. A week ago, seeing her nervous would have made me feel something. Maybe sympathy. Maybe hope. Now I only felt curiosity because for the first time Olivia wasn't the person who had control over my emotions. Claire looked at her calmly. Explain. Olivia swallowed. I know who leaked the photos. Everyone looked at her. One of the board members frowned. Miss Bennett, this is a serious accusation. I know. She opened the folder. That's why I brought proof. Claire didn't move. What proof? Olivia placed several documents on the table. Emails, internal messages, payment records. My eyes narrowed. Payment records. Olivia nodded. The rumors weren't started by employees. The room became tense. They were created by someone outside the company. Claire picked up the papers. She read them silently. Then her expression changed. It was small, almost impossible to notice. But I noticed someone had managed to surprise Claire Morgan. Who? She asked. Olivia hesitated. Then she said, Jason. My stomach dropped. Jason. The same man Olivia chose because he was more interesting. The same man who smiled when I walked away from that gala. A board member looked confused. Why would he do this? Olivia looked down. Because he wanted access to Morgan Enterprises. Claire's eyes became colder. He was using you. Olivia's face changed. I know. The answer was quiet. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because I knew what it felt like to realize someone didn't value you. But there was a difference. I had been hurt by someone leaving. Olivia had hurt someone because she wanted something else. Claire continued reading. Then she looked at me. Ethan. I looked up. Yeah. I need to ask you something. Okay. Why did you congratulate Jason that night? The question surprised me. I looked confused. What? You knew he was the person she chose. I nodded. Yes. Yet you still congratulated him. I didn't understand why that mattered. I don't know. Claire stared at me. Then she said something unexpected. That was the moment I knew. Knew what? That you were different. The room disappeared for a second. Everyone was there. The board. Olivia. The executives. But I only heard Claire. You were hurt. She continued. You had every reason to be angry. She paused. But instead of trying to destroy someone else, you walked away. Her voice softened. That told me everything. I looked down because nobody had ever seen that moment as something good. Most people would have called it weakness. Claire called it strength. One of the executives cleared his throat. Regardless of the evidence, we still have an issue. Everyone looked at him. He continued. The public perception. I expected Claire to answer. She didn't. She looked at me and I understood. She was giving me the chance. Not saving me. Trusting me. I took a breath. Then I spoke. I understand the concern. The executive looked surprised. But I think everyone is focusing on the wrong question. What question should we be asking? I looked around. Not whether Claire and I are together. The room went quiet. But whether I earned my position. Nobody interrupted. I continued. I joined this company because I believed in the work. I looked at Claire and I stayed because I respected the people here. Then I looked back at the board. My relationship with Claire doesn't erase everything I've done. I pointed toward the documents on the table. These rumors were created because someone wanted people to question my ability. I paused. But the truth is simple. I stood. My results existed before anyone knew about us. Silence. Then Claire spoke. Exactly. Everyone turned. She stood beside me, not in front. Beside Ethan Parker was promoted because of his performance. Her voice was firm. Not because of me. The board members exchanged looks. Then one of them asked, Claire, are you prepared to deal with the consequences if this affects the company? Claire didn't hesitate. Yes. I looked at her. She continued, but I will not abandon someone just because other people are uncomfortable seeing him succeed. That sentence hit harder than anything else because I realized something. Claire had spent her entire life fighting alone. And now she was willing to fight with me. After the meeting ended, I followed her back to her office. Neither of us spoke at first. Finally, I said, you didn't have to do that. Claire turned. Do what? Stand beside me. She looked confused. Why wouldn't I? Because it could hurt you. She walked closer. Ethan. I looked at her. You still don't understand. Understand what? I'm not standing beside you because you need protection. She stopped in front of me. I'm standing beside you because I want you beside me. My heart moved, but before I could answer, she continued. I know you think this started because of that kiss. I stayed silent, but it didn't. Claire looked away. For the first time. She seemed nervous. I wanted to tell you something. What? She took a breath. I didn't fall for you because you were impressive. I waited. I fell for you because you were kind when nobody was watching. Those words were simple, but they meant everything. Then she smiled slightly. And because you're the only person who ever told me to eat lunch without being afraid I would fire you. I laughed. I honestly thought you might. I considered it. I looked shocked. She smiled. Then I realized I didn't want you away from me. That was the Claire nobody else knew. The woman behind the perfect image. That evening, something unexpected happened. I received a message from Olivia. I'm sorry. I stared at it. Then another message appeared. I know I ruined something good. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I was angry, because I realized something. The old Ethan would have wanted an apology. The old Ethan would have wanted Olivia to regret losing him. But the new Ethan, he didn't need that anymore because someone else had already shown him his worth. I put my phone away. Then Claire walked into my office. She looked tired. Long day. I smiled. Very. She sat across from me, then quietly said, "Do you regret it?" I knew what she meant. The rumors, the pressure, everything. I thought about it, then shook my head. No. Claire looked surprised. Really, really. I smiled, because for the first time someone chose me without asking what I could give them. Claire looked at me and for a moment the Ice Queen disappeared. Only Claire remained the woman who had taken a chance on me. But I didn't know yet. The hardest part was still coming because the next day Claire would finally tell me the one secret she had been hiding and it would change the way I saw everything. I thought I understood Claire Morgan. I was wrong. For months I had seen the CEO everyone else knew. The woman who walked into meetings and made executives rethink their entire strategy. The woman who could reject a deal worth hundreds of millions without changing her expression. The woman who never looked nervous, never hesitated, never showed weakness. But that night, sitting across from me in her office, Claire wasn't the Ice Queen. She was just CLA. And somehow that made her more powerful than ever. Ethan. I looked up. Yeah. She was holding a cup of coffee in her hands. A strange sight. Claire never looked like someone who needed comfort. But right now, she looked like someone who was finally allowing herself to need something. I need to tell you something. My expression became serious. Okay. She took a breath. I lied to you. My heart sank slightly. What? She looked at me. Not about my feelings. She quickly added. I mean about when they started. I stayed quiet. Claire looked down. 6 months ago. I told you I noticed you. I nodded. Yes. That wasn't the beginning. I frowned. Then she was silent for a few seconds. Then she said, the first time I saw you was almost 2 years ago. I froze. 2 years. Yes. I leaned back. Claire, I've worked here for 3 years. I know. So, you noticed me for 2 years. She nodded. I laughed softly. That's impossible. Because you barely spoke to me. A small smile appeared. That was intentional. I stared at her. Intentional. Yes. Claire looked away. Because every time I wanted to talk to you, I reminded myself I shouldn't. I didn't know what to say. She continued. You were happy with Olivia. I nodded slowly and I respected that. That surprised me. You knew about us. Of course. How? Claire looked at me like the answer was obvious. Ethan, I'm the CEO of the company. I know what happens inside my company. I smiled. That sounds terrifying. Probably is. For a second, we both laughed. Then her expression became serious again. I saw how you treated her. My smile disappeared. You always made excuses for her. I looked down. I thought that was what you did when you loved someone. Claire shook her head. No. She leaned forward. That's what you do when you're afraid someone will leave. The words hit me, because they were true. I had spent years trying to prove I was worth staying for. Claire continued. And then I watched something happen. What? You stopped trying. I looked confused. When that night, the gala, the breakup, the moment everything changed. I saw you standing there after Olivia chose someone else. She paused. Everyone expected you to get angry. I remembered people watching, waiting for drama, waiting for me to break. But you didn't. Claire's voice softened. You looked hurt, but you still treated everyone with respect. She smiled slightly. That was when I realized I didn't admire you. Because you were kind. Then why? Because you were strong enough to stay kind even when someone gave you every reason not to. I didn't know how to respond. Nobody had ever described me like that. Claire looked at me and that scared me. Scared you? Yes. I. Her answer came quietly, because I knew if I let myself get closer to you, I wouldn't be able to walk away. The room became silent. For someone like Claire, that was probably the biggest confession she could make. I spent years building my life around control. She looked at her hands. My father taught me that emotions made people weak. I listened. He always said successful people don't need anyone. Her voice became quieter. So, I became that person. I finally understood. Claire wasn't born cold. She was trained to survive. But then you came along. She smiled. You kept reminding me that being powerful didn't mean being alone. My chest tightened. Claire. She looked at me. I know this is complicated. It is. I know I'm your boss. Yes. I know people will talk. Yes. She nodded. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life making decisions based on what other people think. I looked at her. What do you want? For a moment, the CEO disappeared. The confident woman. The untouchable woman. Only Claire remained. I want a chance. I stayed silent. She continued. Not as your boss. She stepped closer. Not as the CEO. A pause. As the woman who likes you. My heart moved, because that was the first time Claire Morgan had asked for something. Not demanded. Not negotiated. Asked. And somehow that meant more. I'm scared too. I admitted. Her eyes softened. You are. Yes. Of me. I shook my head. No. I smiled slightly. Of this. She understood immediately because everything is changing. Yes. Claire nodded. That's fair. Then she did something I never expected. She reached out and took my hand. No audience. No employees watching. No need to prove anything. Just us. I don't need you to be perfect. Ethan. Her thumb gently moved over my hand. I don't need you to become someone else. She looked at me. I just need you to believe that I chose you for a reason. I squeezed her hand. I'm trying. I know. That answer made me smile because Claire always seemed like she knew everything. But this time, she knew me. The next morning, I thought things would finally become easier. I was wrong. When I arrived at work, I noticed everyone was gathered near the lobby. Something had happened. Ryan walked toward me. His face was serious. Ethan, what happened? He handed me his phone. On the screen was a breaking business article. The headline made my blood run cold. Morgan Enterprises CEO accused of favoritism after secret relationship with employee. I scrolled. The article wasn't just attacking me. It was attacking Claire, her leadership, her reputation, her entire career. And at the bottom of the article was one sentence. A shareholder vote has been requested to remove Claire Morgan as CEO. I looked up. Claire was walking into the building. She saw my expression. Immediately, she knew what happened. I handed her the phone. She read the article. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she looked at me. Not angry, not afraid, just disappointed. They're trying to take my company. I nodded. Yes. She looked at me and they're going to use you to do it. My fists tightened. Then they made a mistake. Claire raised an eyebrow. I looked at her. Because they thought I was the person you needed to protect. I stepped closer. But they forgot something. What? I smiled. I chose you too. For the first time. Claire looked completely speechless. But before she could answer, her assistant rushed over. Claire. What? The emergency shareholder meeting. She paused. It's scheduled for tomorrow morning. Claire looked at me. Tomorrow. One day. To save everything. And this time, I wasn't going to stand behind her. I was going to stand beside her. I had spent most of my life trying not to become a problem for anyone. That was how I was raised. Be responsible. Don't complain. Don't make things harder for people around you. If something goes wrong, fix it quietly. That mindset helped me for years. It helped me become a good employee, a reliable friend, someone people could count on. But standing inside Morgan Enterprises the morning of the shareholder meeting, I realized something. Being reliable didn't mean disappearing. And being kind didn't mean letting people decide your worth. Claire walked beside me toward the conference room. Neither of us said much. We didn't need to. We both knew what was waiting. The people inside weren't just questioning our relationship. They were trying to break Claire and they were using me as the weapon. Before we entered, Claire stopped. Ethan. I looked at her. Yes. She studied my face. You don't have to do this. I frowned. What? You don't have to fight this battle. I almost laughed. Claire. I'm serious. She lowered her voice. If this becomes too much, I will understand. I looked at her. Do you really think I'm leaving? Her expression softened. I think you're the kind of person who tries to protect everyone. That includes you. No. She shook her head. That's exactly what worries me. I smiled. You're worried because I care. Yes. Because I'm not used to someone choosing me when there is nothing to gain. That sentence stayed with me because that was the biggest difference between Claire and everyone else. People saw what she owned. I saw what she carried. I opened the door. Then get used to it. She looked at me because I'm not going anywhere. For a second, Claire Morgan looked completely surprised. Then she smiled. A real smile. And together we walked inside. The room was full. Board members, shareholders, executives, everyone who had influence over the future of the company. At the center sat Richard Hale, the largest shareholder, a man who had always supported Claire until now. He looked at us. Claire. Richard. His eyes moved to me. Ethan. I nodded. Mr. Hale. He leaned back. I wish this meeting wasn't necessary. I almost smiled, because people always said that before doing something they knew was wrong. Claire sat down. Let's discuss the actual issue. Richard opened a folder. The issue is trust. He looked at the others. Morgan Enterprises has always represented professionalism. Nobody spoke. And now the CEO is involved in a romantic relationship with an employee. I stayed silent. Claire did too. Richard continued. Regardless of Ethan's ability, the appearance of favoritism creates risk. Then another shareholder spoke. We need to consider whether Claire can continue leading objectively. I looked at Claire. She was calm, but I knew her. I knew when she was hurt, and she was. Not because they questioned her, because they acted like everything she built could disappear because of one personal choice. Richard looked at me. Ethan, perhaps you should explain your position. I nodded. I stood. The room became quiet. I know what everyone thinks. I looked around. You think I'm here because Claire chose me. Nobody responded. Maybe some of you think I'm lucky. I paused. But you're wrong about one thing. I looked directly at Richard. I didn't become valuable because Claire noticed me. Silence. I became valuable because I worked. I placed a folder on the table. My projects. I looked around. My performance reports. I continued the contracts I helped secure. The problems I solved. The teams I supported. I looked at the shareholders. All of this existed before Claire and I were together. Nobody interrupted. And if you remove Claire tomorrow, those results don't disappear. The room became even quieter. Richard frowned. You're saying this relationship has no influence? No. I answered honestly. It has influence. Everyone looked surprised. I continued. Because Claire made me believe I was capable of more. I looked at her. But she didn't create my ability. A pause. She only reminded me to stop hiding it. For the first time, I saw some shareholders reconsidering. Then the door opened. Everyone turned. Olivia walked in again. But this time she wasn't holding documents. She looked nervous. Richard frowned. Miss Bennett, this meeting is private. I know. She looked at Claire. But you need to hear this. Claire's expression became cold. Olivia took a breath. Because Jason didn't act alone. The room changed instantly. Richard looked at her. What are you saying? Olivia looked down. I found out who helped him. Claire's eyes narrowed. Who? Olivia looked toward Richard. Nobody moved. Then she said, someone inside the company. The room exploded. People started whispering. Richard's expression changed. Do you have proof? Olivia nodded. Yes. She handed Claire another folder. Claire opened it. The more she read, the colder her expression became. Then she looked up. Richard. The room went silent. Richard's face changed. That's impossible. Claire pushed the documents forward. Emails between your assistant and Jason. Nobody spoke. You leaked the information. Richard stood. This is ridiculous. But his confidence was gone. Claire looked at him. You weren't protecting the company. Her voice was ice. You were trying to control it. The room erupted. Security was called. The truth finally came out. Richard had planned to create chaos, remove Claire, and replace her with someone easier to manipulate. And I understood something. This was never about me. I was just the easiest target. After the meeting ended, everyone left. Only Claire and I remained. She looked exhausted. You were incredible. I smiled. You sound surprised. I am. I laughed. She walked closer. Because 6 months ago I thought I was the only one who could protect you. She stopped in front of me, but today she smiled. You protected me. I shook my head. We protected each other. Claire looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "You know what's funny? What? Everyone thinks I changed your life." I raised an eyebrow and she smiled. "You changed mine first." That was the moment I realized something. I wasn't the employee who got lucky. I wasn't the man saved by the Ice Queen. I was Ethan Parker, the man Claire Morgan chose. And I chose her back. But there was still one thing left. The world knew about us now. The company knew. The shareholders knew. Everyone knew. The only question left was we choose each other when there was nothing left to prove. 3 months after the shareholder meeting, people finally stopped whispering. At least most people did. In the beginning, everyone had an opinion. Some thought Claire Morgan had made an emotional decision. Some thought I was the luckiest employee in the company. Some thought our relationship would never survive the pressure. They were wrong, because what they didn't understand was that the hardest part wasn't becoming a couple. The hardest part was learning how to stay one. Claire was still Claire. She was still the woman who could walk into a negotiation room and make experienced executives nervous. She was still the CEO who checked every detail of every contract. She was still impossible to surprise most of the time. But with me, she was different. One Friday afternoon, I walked into her office and found her staring at her computer screen. That alone was unusual. Claire didn't get distracted. "Everything okay?" She looked up, then quickly closed the laptop. "Yes." I raised an eyebrow. That was suspicious. It was not. It absolutely was. Claire sighed. "You're becoming too confident." I smiled. "You're the one who told me to stop hiding." A small smile appeared on her face. "Fair." I walked closer. "What were you looking at?" "Nothing, Claire." She looked away. That was when I knew the Ice Queen was hiding something. I crossed my arms. "You're terrible at lying." She looked offended. "I am not. You are. I built a billion-dollar company. That doesn't mean you can hide things from me." For a moment, she just stared. Then she smiled. "You know, most people are afraid to challenge me." "I know. And you still do it. Someone has to." That sentence made her laugh. A real laugh. And every time I heard it, I still felt surprised because I remembered the first time I met her. Cold, distant, untouchable. Now she was standing in front of me laughing because of something I said. That was something I never wanted to lose. A few days later, Claire invited me to a charity event. Not a company event. Not a business meeting. Something personal that was new. When we arrived, I noticed something immediately. People weren't looking at me like I was the employee who somehow ended up with the CEO. They looked at me like I belonged. That mattered. Not because I needed approval, but because I knew how far I had come. Then I saw Olivia. I didn't expect her to be there. She looked surprised, too. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she approached. "Ethan." I nodded. "Olivia." She looked at Claire beside me, then back at me. "You look happy." I smiled. "I am." She nodded slowly. "I owe you an apology." I stayed quiet. She continued. "I spent so much time chasing someone who looked impressive that I forgot what actually mattered." I didn't say anything. I thought excitement was the same as happiness. She looked down. I was wrong. I believed she meant it. And strangely, that gave me peace. Not because I wanted her back, but because I no longer needed her regret. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said. She looked at me. "You already did." I glanced at Claire. "Yes." And for the first time, saying that felt completely natural. Later that night, Claire and I stood outside the event. She was quiet. I noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" She looked at me. "Nothing." I smiled. "You're terrible at lying. Remember?" She shook her head. "You really won't let that go." "Never." She looked away. Then she said, I used to think love was a weakness. I listened. I thought needing someone meant losing control. She paused. But then you happened. I smiled. Sounds like my fault. It is. I laughed. Then she continued. You made me realize something. What? That the strongest people aren't the ones who never need anyone. She looked at me. They're the ones who find someone worth trusting. I didn't say anything because sometimes the most important moments didn't need a perfect response. Claire reached for my hand the same way she did that night at the gala. The night everything changed. But this time was different. Back then she held my hand because she wanted to show everyone she chose me. Now she held my hand because nobody else mattered. I have a question, she said. I smiled. That sounds serious. It is. What is it? She looked almost nervous. Almost. Do you still remember what I said that night? I knew exactly what she meant. The gala. The kiss. The moment that changed everything. You said I smiled. Now you're mine. Claire looked at me. I did. And she stepped closer. I was wrong. That surprised me. Wrong. Yes. How? She looked into my eyes because I thought you became mine that night. A pause. But the truth is, she squeezed my hand. You chose me, too. My chest tightened because she was right. Love wasn't someone saving you. It wasn't someone completing you. It was choosing each other again and again and again. A year later, Claire and I stood in the same company where everything started. The rumors were gone. The doubts were gone. But one thing remained. The way she looked at me, like I was still the person she noticed before anyone else did. One morning, I walked into the office and found a note on my desk. I opened it. Lunch. Don't skip it, Claire. I laughed. Something's never changed. I walked into her office. She looked up. You got my note. I did. Are you going to eat? Yes. Good. I smiled. You know, for someone who runs an entire company, you spend a lot of time making sure I eat. She looked back at her computer. Someone has to. I laughed because that was my line. And somehow hearing her say it felt perfect. The world knew Claire Morgan as the Ice Queen, the unstoppable CEO, the woman who built an empire. But I knew the truth. She was the woman who saw me when nobody else did. And I was the man who reminded her she didn't have to face everything alone. That night at the gala, my ex walked away because she thought someone else was more interesting. Minutes later, the woman everyone feared stepped forward and chose me. Back then, I thought I had lost everything. I was wrong. I didn't lose the person who was meant to stay. I found her.